Shabbat Shalom, Mishpacha. Okay, before we begin, let's do our petition. Start with the Psalms. We're going to start with Psalm 1. Happy is the man that does not walk in the counsel of the wicked, nor stands in the halakha of sinners, nor sits in the seat of the scornful. But his desire is in the Torah of Yud-Heh-Vah-Heh, and in his Torah he meditates in the days and night. And he shall be like an etz, a tree planted by the rivers of Maim, waters, that brings forth his fruit in his season, whose leaves also shall not wither, and whatsoever it does shall prosper. The wicked are not sober, like the chaff which the wind drives away. Therefore the wicked shall not stand in the judgment, nor sinners in the congregation of the righteous. For Yud-Heh-Vah-Heh knows the halakha of the righteous, but the halakha of the wicked shall perish. And we'll go to Psalm 7. O Yud-Heh-Vah-Heh, my power, in you do I put my trust. Rescue me from all them that persecute me, and rescue me. Lest he hear my soul like a lion, lest he tear my soul like a lion, rendering it in pieces, while there is none to rescue. O Yud-Heh-Vah-Heh, my power, if I have done this, if there be iniquity in my hands, if I have rewarded evil to him that was at shalom with me, or if I have plundered my enemy without cause, let the enemy persecute my soul and take it, yes, let him tread down my life upon the earth, and lay my respect in the dust. Selah. Arise, O Yud-Heh-Vah-Heh, in your anger, lift up yourself because of the rage of my enemies, and awake for me to the judgment that you have commanded. So let the congregation of the people be around you, for their sakes, therefore return on high. Yud-Heh-Vah-Heh shall judge the nations. Judge me, O Yud-Heh-Vah-Heh, according to my righteousness and according to my integrity that is in me. O let the wickedness of the wicked come to an end, but establish the just for the righteous. Elohim tries the hearts and the kidneys. My defense is from Elohim, which rescues the upright in heart. Elohim judges the righteous, and El is angry with the wicked continually. If he does not repent, he will sharpen his sword. He has bent his bow and made it ready. He has also prepared for him the instruments of death. He appoints his arrows against the persecutors. Behold, he travails with iniquity, and he has conceived mischief and brought forth falsehood. He made a pit and dug it, and has fallen into the ditch which he made. His trouble shall turn upon his own head, and his wrongdoing shall come down upon the top of his crown. I will make known Yud-Heh-Vah-Heh according to his righteousness, and will sing praises to the name of Yud-Heh-Vah-Heh Most High. So we'll go to Psalm 119, and we'll pick up this time from Kuf. I cried with my whole heart, hear me, O Yud-Heh-Vah-Heh, I will keep your statutes. I cried to you, rescue me, and I shall keep your testimonies. Arise before the dawning of the morning, and cried, I hope in your word. My eyes are awake through the night watches, that I might meditate in your word. Hear my voice according to your loving kindness, O Yud-Heh-Vah-Heh. Revive me according to your judgment. They draw near that follow after mischief. They are far from your Torah. You are near, O Yud-Heh-Vah-Heh, and all your commandments are truth. Concerning your testimonies I have known of ancient times, that you have founded them forever. Baruch Hashem, we thank you, Father, that we come before you in praise and worship and glory. We thank you for this week. We thank you for our going outs and our coming ins. We thank you for our health. We thank you for our sustenance. We thank you for our protection from all the elements. And we thank you that you send your angels round about us and protect us as we go our way. Father, as we go our way in the coming week as well, protect us, guard us, guide us, give us wisdom that we may do the right things to bless your holy name and to bless our lives, both spiritually and materially and physically. We thank you, Father. Thank you. Baruch Hashem. Amen ve Amen. Okay, so the goings on this week of the world, generally speaking, not much happened this week other than in the financial world. There was the I guess there was the report today on the inflation, and it appears that the inflation data has come in around 3% in America at least. So that means that the inflation is coming down somewhat, and the next decision on the interest rates in this country. They are forecasting at this point, and they are saying that they might raise it a quarter point. So I guess we shall wait and see where they go with it. They are suggesting that they want to increase the rates perhaps 2 more times in this year. Personally, I do not see a need for rate increases considering that the inflation is coming down. However, like last week, the data for the jobs came in very strong, which to them would suggest that they need to raise rates. So because they want to dampen the economy somewhat. That's the kind of the aim they're trying to do. And you know the policies that they have, what I think about them, they're outdated, they are inappropriate, and they do not work. So they just continue to, by raising rates, all you would do is punish the ordinary people to have to pay more loan payments, have to purchase their goods, or have to pay their bank loans and home loans at a more expense. Similarly, in England, it's the same story. England is also UK. Governor Bailey on that side is also suggesting there is going to be further increases. They already last time was a shock that they put the rates up by 0.5%, which is a lot. That means about £50 to an average mortgage. It will add around £50, maybe more, and that would be around $70 US money. So if they raise rates further, that's going to create more pain for them. I was speaking to my brother today, and he said to me that everything in the UK has now become so expensive to do, and it's just ridiculous. So he said it's just not practical any longer, because I think he was trying to get his patio done in his house, and I didn't ask him how much he was quoted and how much he has to pay, but he just made a comment while speaking that everything has become very expensive. So yeah, I think that respectively we are probably better off on this side of the fence in the US, much better off than the Europeans in terms of our inflation, because our gas, our petrol is still cheaper. Our goods are, I would probably say, less in price than what they have to pay over there. They have to pay a lot more taxes. They are taxed to the hilt on their petrol. They pay about 75% petrol on what we call gas over here, or on the petrol pumps, gas stations, aka. So it's difficult to, especially if you're living in a big city in the UK, it makes it rather difficult to manage your finances. However, Baruch Hashem, we petition and pray for our sustenance from the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, the one who sustains us, the one who provides us, and then one who benefits us. So we give thanks to Him for everything as we go our way, and as He continues to bless us, and He will find avenues that will bless us. Now, that is a small on the world front, and there's other things going on in the world that I'm not really going to get into. Who died and who didn't, not really relevant to dwell on negative news. I give you a little bit of the business news, which may be pertinent to your lives, which is pertinent to everybody. On the other hand, I think the war in Ukraine and Russia is still going on. There was a little bit of a rebellion with the Wagner group, which is a mercenary group that works with Russia. They had a little bit of a problem that I believe that they have, between themselves, they have sorted out. It was to do with how they are to be contracted to the Russian military. As you know, that America and European nations continue to support Ukraine with weapons, with ammunitions, with the money, finances. France announced that they're going to be sending missiles to Ukraine, and so you can gather from there that these people do not want an end to the war. when you want an end to the war, you do not supply weapons. You will be looking for dialogue, which there isn't any at the moment. So it seems that this war will continue for now. It's becoming a mini Afghanistan, it's type of Afghanistan war, but let's not hope that it continues for another 20 years, but it will, one day it has to come to an end, and there has to be dialogue for this war to end. And in the meantime, Ukraine is being destroyed, period, and I'm pretty sure many people are suffering in Ukraine and in the Donetsk Republic and the Luhansk Republic, where they continue to shell. The Ukrainians continue to shell, bombard those regions which are closer to them. And of course, it's troublesome for the people there. And to be honest, those people have done nothing against Ukraine, because they're a mixture of Ukrainians and Russians. So there you have it. That's what's going on over there. So coming back to our Parsha, our Torah portion, I read from the Hidden Truths Hebraic Scrolls Complete, which you can get from Amazon or Lulu Publishing. So any readings I do, I normally do it from this Bible translation that I done myself. And so we'll look at the portion of the Bible and discuss any relevant things that concern us. So we are on Parsha 42, Matot, in the book of Numbers, chapter 30, verse 1, and it says, "And Moshe spoke to the heads of the tribe concerning the children of Israel, saying, This is the thing which God has, Yud-Heh-Vah-Heh, has commanded. If a man vow a vow to Yud-Heh-Vah-Heh, or swear an oath to bind his soul with a bond, he shall not break his word. He shall do according to all that proceeds out of his mouth. If a woman also vow a vow to Yud-Heh-Vah-Heh, and bind herself by a bond, being in her father's bait, father's house, in her youth, and her father hears her vow and her bond wherewith she has bound her soul, and her father shall hold his shalom at her, then all her vows shall stand, and every bond wherewith she has bound her soul shall stand. If her father disallow her in the day that he hears not any of her vows or of her bonds wherewith she has bound her soul shall stand, and Yud-Heh-Vah shall forgive her because her father disallowed her. And if she had told her husband, when she vowed or uttered anything out of her lips wherewith she bound her soul, and her husband heard it, and held his shalom at her in the day that he heard it, then her vow shall stand, and her bonds wherewith she bound her soul shall stand." Okay, so within this Parsha, we are talking about oaths, and God is simply saying that when you take an oath, you better mean that you want to take an oath. And now, of course, people generally take an oath without anybody else present. An oath is not really binding, by the way, unless a Kohen hears you, or unless there are other people in the room that hear you. So an oath to be valid, if you take an oath, for it to be valid, somebody has to hear it, to be a witness to that oath. And if there are no witnesses, that oath is not valid. So unless you run the oath through the Kohen in the gate, or a rabbi, or you run the oath with maybe family members or friends who become witnesses to it, then I guess the oath will stand. And if you break the oath, then there are penalties for breaking the oath. This is why God says that you are not to take an oath. Try not to take an oath. This is why it's saying that if the father hears of the oath of the daughter when she's with the father in the father's house, he can annul it. If she's married, her husband hears it, he can annul it, etc. So that was the deal. Apart from that, there's also within this portion of the Torah, it talks about when war was waged against the Midianites. for their role in plotting the moral destruction of Israel. And the Torah talks about how the spoils were allocated amongst the people of Israel, the warriors, the Levites, and the high priest. And then also talks about the tribes of Reuben and Gad, who asked for the lands east of the Jordan as a portion in the promised land, and these being prime pasture lands because they had a lot of cattle. So although Moses was initially very angry with them, but subsequently, because they first joined and led the conquest of the war, then he gives them the portion of the land. Now, I wanted to basically tell you, I thought it would be interesting because just a story that ran in front of my eyes today, and I think there's a book as well that is written. I'll have to source the name of the book. I'll have to check it on Amazon what the name of the book is. But let me see if I can source it. It was against Adolf Hitler's right-hand man, and his name was Eichmann, if you remember. The Eichmann was one of the army guys. And what happened? I'll have to find the name of the book. But what happened was that this guy Eichmann, he basically finalized the solution. Solution meaning the torture, the kidnapping, the abduction of Jews in Germany and from other nations around about that Germany controlled, and then the torture, the extermination, the starving of the Jews that they did in the Holocaust. So Eichmann was a key leader into the role of how he had these people rounded up. And what happened, it's kind of interesting to hear this. What happened was that after all those events, what happened when Germany was disbanded, a lot of Jews were killed. It is estimated according to the Jewish sources that 6 million people were killed in the Holocaust. Okay, so then what happened? Eichmann then leaves, of course, runs away, and all the other so-called generals of Hitler run away when Hitler was disbanded, and then Eichmann runs away to Argentina. Now Israel becomes a nation in 48, and then they have their different leaders, and it was Ben Gurion, I believe, David Ben Gurion, who was the prime minister at the time. So then they find out, they make inquiry where these different people have run away, and although they hadn't seen, the only people who knew what Eichmann looked like were victims, people who survived the Holocaust. So they had to find this man and punish him. So Israel went out of his way, and they made investigation, and Mossad led the way, and they kind of tracked this person to Argentina. He had changed his name from Eichmann to something else, and he kind of disappeared in Argentina. And then the Israeli spy agency, they prepared and sent agents after. First they made sure that the person was there. They sent surveillance. They first established that he was there in Argentina, and when they established that, they brought back, their agents sent back pictures, and they confirmed with the survivors of the Holocaust that is the man that they wanted. And it was all confirmed because he was going under a different name, false name, and he was going under a different passport. But look at Israel's system of how clever they were, that they were able to still track this person down in Argentina. And then they sent mission. I think there was a movie maybe made on this as well. And then they sent men on mission to bring this man back to Israel for a trial. And there was a lot of complication in that, because they had to, what they were going to tell the Argentinian authorities, so they had to keep that quiet. So what they did, they found out that this Eichmann fella, he did a walk every day around his house, and how, what times he left and what times he came. And so they made a watch. And when he, came one evening, when he stepped off the bus and on his local journey that he normally made, there, the agents from the spy agency, they grabbed him, put him in a car and took him to their safe house. Now they had 9 days, because what they used was the Argentinian celebrations. Argentina was about to have its celebrations for freedom. So Israel used that to bring this man back. And so what happened, they first kept him in their safe house for 8-9 days, and then they drugged him up, and they dressed him up in a pilot's or a airplane crew's dress, and pretending to be like he's one of their crews. And they put they changed his name to a Jewish name, put a Jewish badge on him. They made a fake passport for him under that name. And so they went through the immigration, and they all went well through the immigration. They got the man out onto the runway, onto the plane, and then whilst the plane was going to take off, and the plane was told to stop and wait for something. And the agents were really, at the time, the spy agents were really nervous. What's going on? Have they found out? But no, they hadn't found out. There was just some technicality that caused them to get the plane to wait. And then they said, okay, the plane can go. So the plane took off, and so this man arrived in Israel, Ben Gurion Airport. They arrested him there, of course, and they took him into the prison, and then they questioned him, and then they brought their survivors from the Holocaust, and they established that this was the right man that had done all this. And of course, all this time, this man is totally in denial, like he's done nothing. And then he kept saying, oh, I was under orders, I was under orders. But, he was the one who was the orchestrator of the actual solution, what they call the solution, the extermination of the Jews. And so what happened after that, they trialed him. I think the trial went on for a few days, and Israel announced to the world that we have got Eichmann, and the whole world was shocked. How Israel managed to capture him and bring him back? And Argentina was protesting, calling Israel's ambassador and all that nonsense. And Israel said, forget about it. You're not getting him back. We took him, and that's the end of that. We're not giving him back. Because they were asking for him back because Israel had no treaty with Argentina. Anyway, so what ended up happening is Israel ended up, the man had no remorse. Can you think a man who exterminated so many people had no remorse in his eyes whatsoever of the amount of death and destruction he created? Totally remorseless. Cold-blooded killer, I'd say, cold-blooded murderer. So what happened in the end is that in the end he was hanged. He was hanged publicly for everybody to see, and he was killed, terminated. And I think rightfully so, considering the crimes he did. But I would have thought that maybe it would have been better to keep him alive and keep him under punishment, because maybe that was an easier punishment, just to kill him in 6 days. Maybe Israel should have kept him for a while, and for a few years at least, 4, 5 years, 10 years, drag his death sentence for 10 years, and give him some gloves of punishment before they took his life. At least that way would have learned a better lesson. But anyhow, I guess at the time they decided to end his life quickly, and so it was done, I guess, out of political expediency, because of the nations around about would start to complain and all that, as they normally do. So that's what happened over there back then, and this is how they got him, and they got some other people as well that were allied with Hitler. Israel's so-called generals who ran away. They caught a few others as well. So I found it rather interesting that how they managed to get information for this man, and how they managed to track him. He had gone right out into Latin America, where he had thought, at least to himself, that he'll never be captured. But look, they captured him and they punished him, and kudos to Israel for that. Baruch Hashem. that they did do that. So that was kind of, I heard that story today and I was like, wow, that's something, isn't it? How they managed to capture him and bring him to justice. Okay, so coming back to the Parsha, what I note over here is the mention of a woman, a mention of God, and the mention of man, the guardian, to the woman, either a guardian, either the father or the husband. Now, if we take this philosophically, then we could say, philosophically, it says here that if a man vow a vow to God or swear an oath to bind his soul with a bond. So, similarly, on a manifesting front, if you desire to get something and you made a vow, actually that's a very good way to get something, is to vow a vow. But let's look at it the other way, is that within us as human beings, we have both male and female aspects within ourselves. So within our brains, and I'm talking about the brains here, the brains has both the male and female aspects of a human being. And it has the aspect of creation, because the creation, anything that we desire that is created, it comes from the male and female aspects within the brain. So there is, even though women have the womb, powerful place to create, but men also have what I might describe as a virtual or a hidden womb. And that womb is actually technically in your brain, in your minds. So here when it says that a man vow to God or swear an oath to bind his soul with a bond, he shall not break his word, he shall do according to all that proceeds out of his mouth. So when you, applying it philosophically, when you try to get something, let's say you want a car, you want to buy a car, and so you you make a vow to yourself, you write an affirmation to some effect, you might say, I have a car, or I have a particular model of a car. Let's say, let's use an analogy of a Ford. I have a Ford Focus. You might say, I have a Ford Focus, and you vow a vow to yourself, basically meaning to God, because when you vow, through you, it is channeled to God through your brain, okay, through your spiritual self. And so you swear an oath, you bind your soul with a bond, and it says you shall not break your word. You shall do according to all that you proceeds out of your mouth. It means that once you set your mind, don't change your mind. Don't change it after a week and say, oh, I think I need to do some other way. So don't change your mind, be firm and continue to do it. Continue to say it. Say similarly, if a woman also vow to God and bind herself by a bond, being in a father's house. Technically, we, the male and the female aspect of humanity, are in their father's house. Where is the father's house? The father's house is in your head, technically, because that is the connecting point that connects to the heavens. And it says, and a father hears her vow. Who's going to hear the vow? Of course, the part of our brain that connects with God, connects to the heavens. It hears your vow, and it hears your bond that you bound yourself to, and then it will act on your behalf. But the secret to bringing an oath is not just saying an oath and just forgetting about it. The secret is to speak it often and to continue to repeat it often. That is the secret to attaining your oath. So you can't just say, oh, Lord, I'm going to make an oath. If you give me a car, I will, give you, I don't know, a sacrifice of I'll pledge a sacrifice of a lamb or equivalent thereof to the priest, to the Kohen. If you just said that and forgot about it, that wouldn't be enough. Like I said, there has to be witnesses that heard you, like a Kohen or another teacher or other people close to you. You have to have those witnesses, and once you have those witnesses, your oath stands. Now, once you've done that, don't just stop there. You got to write that down. By the way, you have to write it down, and maybe you don't put a date on it, but I'd suggest you put a date on your laptop or on your phone or on your tablet device. Put a date on your oath. What date you set it to, and what date you expect to bring it in, and then you work on it. Now, like I said, if you forget about it and you totally slept on it, you may not get your oath very fast. Why? Because you're sleeping on it. You need to act on it. In other words, let me give you an example. If I said I have an Audi car, I have a, whatever, Audi, I don't know, pick one, Quattro. I have an Audi Quattro. So if I set myself an oath and said, I'm going to get an Audi Quattro, and I have an Audi Quattro, and by God is going to give it to me. So I bound myself as an oath saying that, God, I want an Audi Quattro, you're going to give it to me, and when I get the car, I will, as an offering, I will give the worth of a lamb to you. Okay, fair enough. You've done that. Now, do I sleep on it after I've done that oath, provided I have the right witnesses? The answer is no. I continue to work on it. The reason that people don't get their oath is because they stop working on it. So you must work on it. How do you work on it? Well, if you wanted $1 million as an oath, what would you just stop? Would you just stop and sleep on it? Of course not. You'd have to speak it every day. You'd have to affirm it every day. Affirm and persist. I have $1 million. I have $1 million in my bank. Or I have an Audi Quattro. I have an Audi Quattro. I have to continue to speak it. I can't just sleep on it. And if I sleep on it, well, then if it doesn't come, I think that you could probably say partly it's not God's fault. It is you who did not follow it through. God is still able to and willing to give it to you. God is, because time is an issue for us, not for God. God doesn't live in time. We do. So God is outside of time and He lives in eternity. But God expects us to do the work. Look what it says. And her husband heard it and held his shalom at her in the day that he heard it. Then her vow shall stand. Who's the husband here technically? Who's our husband symbolically? Well, symbolically, since the whole of house of Israel represents as a woman, the husband is God. Well, who hears the oath? The husband. And it says that the husband held his shalom. Means he said nothing. He was happy with it. He kept quiet. You didn't hear from God, and God didn't tell you, hey, you can't do it. And God totally stood quiet, stayed silent. He heard your oath, and he stayed silent. Then it says your oath will stand. That means your oath is now bound. What are you supposed to do next? Well, this is what I would do. I would write it on a piece of card. If my oath is for a car, a simplistic example, it could be for a pile of money. It could be for health, to, cure a disease. It could be for anything, long life. It could be for maybe, a sum of money. Maybe for a relationship. Whatever, there's a number of things you can ask an oath for. Maybe having a child. Maybe having a baby. People make oaths for that as well. So what I would do then is, if my oath was in simplistic terms for a car, I would write it down, then I will start repeating it. I have an Audi Quattro. I will say it. I will take, maybe 10 minutes, 15 minutes a day, and I will meditate on it. I have an Audi Quattro. I have an Audi Quattro. I have an Audi Quattro. And God's going to bless me with it. And God's going to bless me with it. So when I continue to work on it, there is absolutely no way that will not come. It has to come if I do it that way. But if I sleep on it and I say it one time and then I forget about it, well, guess what? It can take a lot longer for it to materialize, and then you can't set a timeline on it. You can't say, hey, God, give it to me in 6 months or 3 months, but you haven't done no work on it. You see, it can affect you in a negative. When I say negative, I mean in a non-delivering way. The oath will take longer and longer to come to you because you just totally forgot about it. So you got to work on it daily, work on it. Listen, it is known that if you take an affirmation and you repeat it every day for 3 days non-stop in your mind, don't have to physically repeat it, just repeat it in your mind for 3 days non-stop, that thing will become evident in your life. Let me give you one example from one of Neville's books. Neville said there was a young boy called Robert Millikan, and Robert Millikan was very poor and he had no money. and he wasn't even educated at the time. So he went into his little closet, his room, he locked himself in, and he for the next 18 hours, he just repeated, I have a lavish, steady, dependable income, consistent with integrity and mutual benefit. He continuously repeated it for 18 hours, 16 to 18 hours. And then after that, he left the room and carried on his way. This young boy became a scientist. He went on to produce stuff. He then became rich through that. He made some patents, and then he left. He himself was well off. He had a lavish, steady income, just as he has asked for, and he left money for his children. So what is the moral of the story behind the oath? The moral of the story is this, that you don't stop and sleep on it. That's the moral of the story. In other words, you got to affirm and persist. If you will affirm and persist, you will get what you desire. I guarantee you will get it. But if you don't affirm and persist, you will not get it quickly. You will get it very slowly, because it will delay. It will delay, and it will delay. And it reminds me, this delay reminds me of a verse in the Bible, which goes to the effect of, let me find the verse for you, which goes to the effect of, for still the vision awaits its appointed time. If it seems slow, wait for it. It will surely come. It will not delay. This is from the book of Habakkuk, chapter 2, verse 3. So, in other words, if all you're going to do is sleep on it and do nothing else on your part, I do not think that you're going to get it very quickly. So, please, if you ever made an oath, first of all, I normally say don't make oaths, because they are, hard to keep. In other words, you got to persist on them daily, like you're going to your job. And so, if you do that, then sure, you'll get your oath. And similarly, if you persist and you continue to affirm, there is absolutely no doubt why you can't get it. You've got to at least spend a number of hours a day, or a number of minutes a day, at least focused on it, on your oath. If you so dearly want it, if I wanted a car desperately, I wanted a new car, what would I do? Would I be thinking about a soap opera, or would I be thinking about making my dinner, or would I be thinking about when is my car coming? Because if I wanted a car, I'll be focusing on the car. I'll be looking at my car. I'll be looking at my car pictures. I'll be affirming my car. I have an Audi Quattro. I'll be saying that all day long. It's as simple as that. So this is why it's important for those of you who are into doing an oath, or perhaps want to get something in your life, like sum of money, perhaps something else. I read about a woman that wanted $20,000 in her bank. Okay, all she said is that I have $20,000 in my bank. By the way, she had no job, and she kept repeating that one statement for 3 days. I have $20,000 in my bank. I have $20,000 in my bank. I have $20,000 in my bank. She kept repeating it for 3 days. 3 days later, when she stopped and carried on her way doing other things, and she got the money. Now, she didn't specify how she got the money, $20,000, but she got the $20,000, whatever the avenue was, whether it was a gift, whether it was a scratch-off card, or whether it was something else, I don't know, but she got the money. In other words, what I told you earlier, if for 3 days vigil, if you set a 3-day vigil on an affirmation, one affirmation, and you continuously repeat it, you will get what you asked for. You won't have to wait long. Okay? Now, the question is, how much is it worth to you? Is 3 days work worth to you, or is it not worth to you? Or do you want to just live your life, floating around the world and, floating around in your country and in your city and getting nowhere? Is that the life you want? Or do you want the life where you actually are not a floater, but actually a manifester? That you use the law to manifest. This is the law, the Torah. This is the law that you can manifest within 3 days. Easy. So do it. If you're going to do it, do it. Now, that's that part of the lecture. Now, coming back to coming back to the part of medicine. We talked about healing, we talked about medicine, we talked about things. I gave you 2 weeks ago, possibly 3 weeks ago, I spoke about the grounding mat, or you can get a grounding sheet, which I find much easier. If you get a grounding sheet and put your feet on it all day long when you're sitting up. It doesn't have to be all day long. I mean, if you're sitting up in front of a laptop or sitting up to do something, read a book maybe, or do something else, or peruse your thoughts, maybe say your affirmations, then put your feet on the grounding grounding cloth or grounding sheet. And this is what I found, because I purchased one to test it out, and it does work. And by the way, I noticed that it gives you beautiful sleep. You got beautiful sleep if you ground yourself. Now, short of you going out on the grass and spending 30 minutes with naked feet, which I doubt everybody has time for that, but if you just did that, if you just put your feet on a grounding sheet for 1 hour a day, it will improve many areas. It will improve your health, it will improve your blood pressure, it will improve your sleep, and many other things it will do for you. So I would suggest highly you do that. Highly that you do that. Now, for the people who had blood pressure, I recommended moringa seed, that you take moringa seed and you eat 1 seed a day. That will help to regulate your blood pressure. So that was that. Now, depending on what kind of illness you have, there are different remedies, natural or otherwise, for different types of illnesses. So it all depends, what kind of difficulty or what kind of challenge you're dealing with. Then the cure is given according to the challenge that you have. I often hear of people who have difficulty with diabetes and difficulty with blood pressure, and those things, by the way, are curable. Yes, they are curable. So, but there are natural ways to do that. However, there may be other difficulties that people have. Now, I wanted to give you another little cure that might help you. For, if you are having trouble sleeping, one other way to help you, and if you have dark circles around your eyes, one easy way is to get castor oil and put it around your eyes, and put it on your eyelids, on your eyelashes, before, when you're sitting down, and that will actually make you fall asleep. If you're having sleep problems, castor oil is really good at making you sleep. So unless you want to stay awake, that's different. But if you want to sleep, then you put castor oil around your eyes and around your blacks of your eyes, if you have blacks of your eyes, and then that will actually make you sleep. You can also put a drop of castor oil in your umbilical cord. It has tremendous benefits there as well. So cheap, and easy, and very, very effective to do. So I recommend that if you're having sleep issues, you can go with that. And also it helps to remove the blacks of the eyes and get you going in those areas as well. So with that, I'm gonna not go any further into the Torah reading and discuss other parts of the Torah, but I'll encourage you to read the book of Numbers, chapters 30, 31, 32. And until next week, I wish you a happy Shabbat Shalom, a great and wonderful week ahead. We already had the, July 4th. That's just been previous week. So I guess we are into summer now. So enjoy your summer. Enjoy your time with your families. Have a wonderful time, wonderful week. Until next time, Shabbat Shalom and Shalom Shalom to you.